I thought I'd do this video in the house. I haven't been feeling that great the last week. I was originally, I'd planned, I thought I'll shoot it on a hill in the Stirling area. Then I thought, no, I'll shoot it in Mugduck Country Park, which is a wee bit closer. Then I thought, no, I'll just shoot it in the local park, quite near where I stay. But then I thought, nah, I'll just shoot it in the house. That's how iffy I feel. It might well be the London version of COVID. I've just returned from a trip down to London on a mission of grave importance. I was visiting the Great British Beer Festival at Olympia. Huge, wonderful old structure given over wholly to the drinking of beer. Hard to imagine anything better. And there's all sorts of stalls down there selling stuff, and there was a hat stall, and after a few beers I felt the need to buy this hat. It seemed the most logical thing in the world just to kind of spend the next few hours as a wobbly sea creature. It's a jellyfish, just in case nobody's twigged. Jellyfish. I'm transitioning. Ed the jellyfish. So today we're just having a bit of a chat, and we'll end with a song. And I know there'll be some of you out there thinking, no, here we go, he's having a chat and a song. But don't dare switch off. Yeah, don't dare switch off. Hopefully I'll go over this or about in the wilds at some point, but I just feel very weak. I mean, that's about the only symptom I have. Is just I feel heavy, as if gravity's changed. And while I wouldn't say I'm unsteady on my feet, as I go about the house, I find myself holding on to things just in case, for a wee bit of support. I mean, it might not be COVID. You know, there's any number of viruses kicking about, and often when your body's fighting a virus, you're not getting a great deal of symptoms. You just feel a bit under the weather for a while. I feel very under the weather. It's just kind of weak, you know. As I say, it could be a London version of COVID. God knows. I think the main topic that I want to talk about is customer service. And I don't think it applies just to pubs. It applies perhaps to all sorts of retail businesses out there that deal with members of the public. And I find standards are just kind of slipping. You know, maybe that's what you think when you get old. You're constantly moaning about stuff, things not being as good as they used to be. And it's not like we had in our day. I mean, at the moment, the television is awash with images of school kids getting all excited about their exam results. You think, what is going on there? I mean, when I did my O grades, there wasn't television cameras. We just get on with it. There wasn't all this whooping and hollering and stuff like that. Television crews. I don't know. I think it's a nonsense, I really do. When I was down in London, I visited a pub in the Westminster area, you know, not far from the Houses of Parliament and all that kind of carry on. And it was just a lovely old pub. It was a very old pub. I was in my element when I was inside it. It was all old wood that smelled of old wood. There was no tables. It's quite a small bar area, although I think there was some sort of restaurant downstairs. And it was just all kind of bar stools, and mostly customers would stand. I loved it. And I sat on a stool by the window, soaking everything up. I enjoyed it so much. Just had one beer. I think it was a Samuel Smith's pub. I can't remember the name of the pub. But I found the bar stool, when I say a bar stool, it was at the window, but the stools were a bit awkward to sit on because the low rung was too low. You couldn't, it was awkward to kind of put your feet on it. And the high rung was too high, almost a knees up at your chest job. And as I left, I said to the barmaid, I think my legs are the wrong height for your bar stools. And she said, what? An awful lot of people in London say, what? I don't know whether it's the case that they don't quite understand the accent or whether it's a ploy to give them more time to figure out what to say in response. I said, I don't think my legs are the right height for your bar stools, rungs, and she just kind of essentially turned away. I was joking, you know. I expected her to go, ha ha ha, and wander off. But as she turned away, I could sense that the barman had come out from behind the bar. He's obviously thinking to himself, oh, here we go, we've got a Scotsman going on about the size of his legs. We could have trouble here. I sneaked out, you know. I mean, London, I think an awful lot of people in the public eye in London, not so much the public eye, but people who deal with members of the public in London, it'll apply to lots of other places, Edinburgh as well, where you get an awful lot of tourists. You just can't be nice to them all. It's just the sheer volume of people you have to deal with. And I think some people in that area of employment kind of partially shut down. They think, I can't deal with this anymore, I'm going to shut down a little bit, go into my own little world, sit here. Because I paid the British Museum a short visit, and I only lasted about 2 minutes. I thought, this is ridiculous. The place is just absolutely chock-a-block with people. It was impossible to see anything properly. So I lasted 2 minutes, and there was a guy sitting by the door on the way out, member of staff, and I said to him, again in a kind of jokey way, I said, I think a 2 minute visit's long enough. And he, rather than him going, he just kind of went, he had shut down, you know, he had had enough of all these people. He wasn't responding to anything, you know. Poor man. Imagine doing that for a job. But another pub I was in London, I know the name of this one, it was the Salisbury in, I think it wasn't far from Trafalgar Square and perhaps the Soho area. And again, it was a lovely old pub interior. Wall-to-wall mirrors, decorated mirrors with swirly kind of patterns. I don't think the pattern was on the mirror. I don't think the pattern was acid etched. Maybe it was. I don't know. I don't know how it was. I don't know either way. I think the pattern had a bit of depth to it, which would imply it wasn't acid etched. It was somehow carved out, and I forgot the word. But the whole pub interior was like that, and there was a few pubs in London with a similar interior decoration. It's all designed to make the place look bigger, and the kind of gin palaces of their day, where the mirrors would reflect the lighting in the place, make it all look grand. And my God, it still looks grand today. The Salisbury, wow. But the level of customer service inside was quite appalling. It was a kind of long bar with a kind of curving end, and you sometimes wonder where to stand to attract the attention of staff. I stood beside the beer pump that I wanted. I thought, oh, I want that beer, I'll stand beside it. It just happened to be at the kind of thin end of a long counter. And I was just being totally ignored. People who were coming in or approaching the counter after me were getting served. I was just standing there. There was two members of staff. At one point, one of them turned around and looked at me and then looked away again. You know, he didn't, as you might expect, say to the other member of staff, Jesse, customer there wasn't served, or whatever. He just looked at me and turned away with a slight air of contempt about him, as if to say, I'm not flipping serving you, mate. Again, this is a busy area of London, the Soho area. Maybe he, again, had just kind of overdosed with visitors, most of whom probably couldn't speak much English. And after a while, I said to somebody else, I said, I've become invisible here. Invisible. Nobody's seen me. And eventually the other member of staff sort of came. She turned around. I thought I might be able to catch her attention, and I gave a wee, put my hand up and a kind of wave to attract her attention. She saw me, and she gave me the exact same wave back, which I thought was actually a bit cheeky. It really was. It was that kind of wave, you know. I'm saying, look, I'm not waving to be nice. I'm trying to get served here, you know. I mean, after a while, I was chatting to them, and it was okay. But initially, trying to get served was just pretty ridiculous, really. I'm going to take this hat off now, because the thing about being a jellyfish is it makes your head awful hot. Yeah, being a jellyfish isn't all it's cracked up to be. Anybody want a jellyfish hat? Another example of poor customer service, it does seem mainly to involve young people. I don't know whether we're not training bar staff and other people in the performing a public service. I'm afraid that they just don't give a monkeys, you know. I don't know what it is. I did a video about a walk up a hill at Strathyre, and I popped into the Broch, sort of cafe thing. It was the only place open. You know, as I was coming down off the hill, I was pretty wrecked. I thought, my God, I could murder a beer or two. There was no place. The hotel or the inn, one opened at 3, one opened at 4. I thought, what? So somebody said, the Broch, you can get a beer there. Turns out it was tins of beer. I don't want a tin of beer. It's about £4 odd for a tin of beer. That's not happening. But anyway, I went to this place, the Broch, and it was full of young women doing stuff, serving or not serving, as the case may be. And I stood at the counter for a long time, very short counter inside. And to be fair, I think while I was standing there, I did see a little kind of jar with a lot of wooden spoons with numbers on them, which probably indicated that it was table service. You would go to a table and members of staff would come out to serve you. I wasn't exactly convinced that that was the case. I stood there, and there must have been 4 or 5 young lassies behind the counter, and every now and then one would turn round and look at me. And sometimes would turn round, look at you and turn away, again in a slight look of contempt, as if to say, I'm not flipping serving you, mate. What? I sometimes wonder if there's a bit of ageism going on here. I'm an old guy. I'm not going to serve you, you old codger. And, I mean, what you would expect in such a situation is for one of these young lassies to say, excuse me, sir, it's table service. If you find yourself a table, we'll about in a minute. That's all that's required, if it was table service, as I think it was. But no, they just kind of, okay, each in turn, turned around, gave me a wee look and turned back to whatever they were doing. Eventually one lassie turned around and looked at me for a bit longer than had been the case in the few minutes that I'd been there. And I thought, is this it? Am I getting served? Is this an interaction where I'm going to get served? Or is she just trying to stare me out in some way? You know. And eventually, I figured out, I don't want a tin of beer. That's ridiculous. I'll just have an orange juice. So I think she must have wrote it down or something, or I paid for it. I can't remember. And she said, "Where are you sitting?" I said, I don't know. I don't know. She said, "Well, I need to know where you're sitting so I can bring it out to you." I said, "What? Are you not going to give me it now? Does it need special preparation? A glass of orange juice? All you have to do is that. 2-second job." Eventually, she turned round to pour the orange juice and give it to me there and then. But while she was doing that, another member of staff approached her and whispered in her ear. Undoubtedly, without question, words along the lines of "another irritating old codger." I mean, the level of customers is absolutely appalling. It really is. I don't think we're training these young people in how to properly serve members of the public. As I think I said just a few minutes ago, all that had to happen there was for one of them to say, "Excuse me, sir, it's table service. Find yourself a seat and we'll be out in a minute." But no, there's just this air of contempt. There's an old man standing there counting. What's he doing there? Oh, for God's sake. Again, appalling customer service. And I'm going to give you another example, a wee bit closer to home. This is the Thornwood Bar, which is very near me. And I've moaned about it before as the place that serves your beer in a frozen glass, and as you're trying to drink this frozen lump of glass, or drink from this frozen lump of glass, it's melting and it's dripping down your clothes. So they maybe already earmarked me as trouble. Anyway, I went in, it was early on a Saturday evening. I just wanted a beer, and they come up and say, "Can I help you?" I said, "I'm just in for a beer." So they showed me to a table, a little round table for two. And I sat down and got my beer. And about 5 minutes after I sat down, a young lassie came up to me and said, "That table's booked at 6:30. There was nothing polite about what she was saying. She was being very direct and to the point that actually she was almost being rude. "That table's booked at 6:30. All that was missing from that sentence was, "All right." I mean, maybe I'd made it clear when I went in that I was all in for a beer, but then maybe as I was sitting there, I might have thought to myself, "Oh, I quite like that, I'll have another beer." There was no reserved notice on the table, and the big question is, did they recognise me as that moaning old git who goes on and on about the frozen glasses, "We don't want him in here, get rid of him"? Or was it the case that they're just totally inept? They took a booking for a table while somebody was sat at it. Somebody phoned her, "A table for two. Yeah, okay, there's an old guy sat there. We got rid of him, you can sit there." What on earth is going on there? Yeah, clearly it's designed to make you feel unwelcome. And I'm thinking again, is there a bit of ageism going on here? Or is it just that they recognise me as that old git? I don't know. It's the whole thing is unwelcoming and totally lacking in any sort of customer care or customer service. I mean, another example, and this is kind of moving away a bit from the customer sort of service thing, but it is about young people. On the train back from London, I was in a train carriage where none of the seats were reserved. A whole carriage that anybody could sit anywhere. And I sat at a window and a table. It was one of these kind of table for four kind of things. Window facing the direction of travel. And the carriage was actually fairly empty, at least originally. And a young guy got on at London, and he sat directly opposite me. And right away I'm thinking, what's this guy doing sitting here? You know, there was plenty of other seats, seats for two that you could have sat at, but he chose to sit right opposite me. And normally if you're in such a situation, there's a certain etiquette, unspoken way of doing things, in that if you have to sit at such a table, a seating arrangement for four, there's somebody sitting in one seat, you don't sit opposite them. You'll sit in the sort of diagonal seat so that you can both kind of stretch your legs out and all that carry on. So I'm thinking, if the train hasn't even left London here, and I've got a situation. I'm already irritated. I've got 4.5 hours of irritation ahead of me here. But I wasn't about to move. I don't know, maybe I should have said, I was going to swear there. Find yourself another seat, mate, for God's sake. It was just a young guy. He looked about, maybe university age, with long hair, maybe about 18 years old, I'm guessing. He was constantly wearing earphones on, like a lot of young folk. They're constantly listening to music. And every now and then, I kind of caught a glimpse of a movement. And I thought maybe he was pointing at something. I thought, I wasn't quick enough to see exactly what he was doing. But then sometimes that kind of movement would go on for a little longer, and he was doing this kind of thing. Like his finger had become a metronome to the music. This was a young lad who was clearly in kind of la-la land. So anyway, I tried to get to say a few words. It's polite conversation, but it was having none of it. Music, finger, sorry. At one point, I went up to use the toilet, stretch my legs, and put my jacket on the seat I'd been sitting on. When I came back, his feet were up on the seat. His feet were up on my seat. Partially on my jacket, in fact. And I'm looking, I'm like, I was kind of astonished or astounded that I just couldn't quite figure out what to say. Sort of flabbergasted, that might well be the word. But I didn't want to spend the next few hours with a tense atmosphere. His shoes looked reasonably clean, there wasn't any dirt, so I just kind of, he took his feet away and I kind of gently brushed the seat and sat down. But I thought, what is this young man thinking? It's just, it's no consideration for others. I have seen seats on trains where they're absolutely filthy. You think somebody's put dirty shoes on that seat. Somebody's going to sit on that. So, when he put his feet on my seat, I was like, what? I don't think he did it out of badness. I think he did it because he just wasn't thinking. He was in la-la land. Probably how he went about things, even in his own house. I spoke to him just when we arrived in Glasgow. I thought, thank Christ, we've arrived. And it turns out he'd come up to watch the cycling, I mean, how he survived life with such a kind of lackadaisical and uncaring attitude, I really don't know. Young people, yeah. And again, on a slightly different subject, but remaining with trains, I don't know if you've noticed, I don't know if it's just in the Strathclyde area, but in the last few months or however long it's been, suddenly there's been notices on the doors on trains, and the little notice says, exit here. Like nobody's ever seen a door before, and they wouldn't quite know how to kind of think, what's this for? Oh, you exit here, right? There was me thinking you had to exit via the window. I mean, what has happened to the world that we need exit here signs on doors? The whole world's gone absolutely bonkers. Anyway, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Here's the song. I hope you enjoy it, and take care out there. I'm Eddie Burns. Bye for now.
To look at, he is looking at you. No one is seeing.